can't stand looking at myself. I see a coward, not a man of dignity.
The meatloaf was getting cold, and my wife Monica was getting that look again. You know the one, like a cat that's cornered a mouse and is deciding which limb to bite off first. She'd been stirring her mashed potatoes into little peaks for 5 minutes, her perfectly manicured nails clicking against the fork in a rhythm that made my teeth itch. "David," she said, not looking up from her architectural potato project, "I've been thinking about something. Something exciting." Our 17-year-old daughter, Lily, didn't even glance up from her phone. Smart kid. She'd learned to tune out her mother's exciting ideas around the same time she'd learned to walk. Me? I was still stupid enough to engage. "Yeah? What's that, honey?" I took a bite of meatloaf that tasted like cardboard. Everything Monica cooked tasted like cardboard these days. Hell, everything about our life tasted like cardboard. Monica finally looked up, and there it was. That smile. The one that used to make my heart race back when we were 25, and I thought I was the luckiest coward in Maine. Now it just made my stomach drop like I'd swallowed a bowling ball. "I've been fantasizing," she said, her voice dropping to that breathy whisper she used to reserve for the bedroom. "About you, me, and Trent." The fork stopped halfway to my mouth. Trent, her old friend from the law firm, the one with the perfectly styled hair and the BMW that cost more than I made in 6 months adjusting insurance claims, the one who'd been texting my wife at all hours, sending her flowers just because, and showing up at our house with increasingly flimsy excuses. "Fantasizing," I repeated, setting down my fork with the kind of careful control I'd learned in my boxing days. Back when I could solve problems with my fists instead of having to sit here and pretend my marriage wasn't circling the drain like yesterday's dishwater. Monica's smile widened. "I thought maybe we could explore some new possibilities. Shake things up a bit. God knows we could use some excitement around here." Lily snorted without looking up from her phone. "Gross, Mom. Some of us are trying to eat." "This is adult conversation, sweetheart," Monica said, but her eyes never left mine. "David, I actually invited Trent over tonight. He should be here any minute." The doorbell rang. Perfect having Zex timing. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor I'd installed myself 3 years ago, back when I still thought this house meant something. Back when I thought Monica and I were building something together instead of her just using me as a stepping stone to whatever the hell she thought she deserved. "If he walks through that door," I said, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest like steam in a pressure cooker, "I'm going to confront him." Monica's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. "Oh, David, don't be so dramatic. We're all adults here. We can have a civilized conversation about—" The doorbell rang again, longer this time, insistent. "About what? Exactly?" I was already moving toward the front door, my hands clenching into fists. 20 years since my last fight, but muscle memory is a hell of a thing. "About how you've been screwing around behind my back? About how you think I'm too stupid to notice the receipts for hotel rooms I've never seen? About how you've been coming home smelling like his cologne?" "David, wait!" But I was already at the door, yanking it open to find Trent standing on my front porch with a bottle of wine and that smug smile that made me want to rearrange his face. He was wearing one of those expensive suits that probably cost more than my truck. His hair styled like he'd just stepped out of a magazine. Everything about him screamed, "I'm better than you," in a way that made my working-class blood boil. "Hey there, Dave," he said, like we were old buddies, like he hadn't been systematically destroying my marriage for the past 6 months. "Monica invited me for dinner. Hope that's okay." I grabbed him by the lapels of his $1,000 suit and dragged him off the porch, around the side of the house toward the garage. He was lighter than I expected, all expensive clothes and soft living. The wine bottle hit the ground and shattered, red liquid spreading across the driveway like blood. "What the hell?" Trent started, but I slammed him against the garage door hard enough to rattle the windows. "Listen to me very carefully, you piece of mess," I said, my face inches from his. He smelled like expensive aftershave and fear sweat. "You see that crowbar hanging on the wall behind you? If you ever, and I mean ever, step foot in my house again, you're going to leave in a wheelchair. Are we clear?" Trent's face had gone white, all that courtroom confidence draining out of him like air from a punctured tire. "You're crazy, man. Monica said—" "I don't give a damn what Monica said." I pressed him harder against the door. "This is between you and me now. Stay away from my family." David! Monica's voice cut through the night air. She was standing at the corner of the house in her little black dress, the one she claimed was for client dinners, but never seemed to wear when she was actually meeting clients. Let him go! What is wrong with you? I released Trent and stepped back, watching him straighten his rumpled suit with shaking hands. Nothing's wrong with me, honey. I'm just having a civilized conversation with your friend here about boundaries. Trent backed toward his BMW, stumbling slightly. This isn't over, Dave. Yeah, it is. I picked up a shard of the broken wine bottle. Unless you want to find out what 20 years of frustration can do to a man who used to settle disputes in a boxing ring. He got in his car and peeled out of the driveway fast enough to leave rubber on the asphalt. Monica watched him go, then turned to me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, not disappointment. Something worse. Amusement. You're pathetic, she said, laughing. Actually laughing. You know that? Trent was right about you. You're just a small-town loser who peaked in high school. Maybe next time I'll invite more friends. Make it a real party. She turned and walked back into the house, her heels clicking on the walkway like a countdown timer. I stood there in the driveway, surrounded by broken glass and the smell of spilled wine, and made myself a promise. She wanted a war. She was going to get one. The next morning, Monica acted like nothing had happened. She sat at the kitchen counter in her silk robe, scrolling through her phone and sipping coffee from the mug I'd bought her last Christmas. The one that said, "World's Best Wife," in gold lettering that was already starting to chip. I'm thinking of redecorating the living room, she said without looking up. Something more modern, more sophisticated. I poured myself coffee and leaned against the counter, studying her. 20 years of marriage, and I was just now realizing I didn't know this woman at all. The Monica I'd fallen in love with had been warm, funny, a little insecure about her small-town background. This creature wearing her face was cold as January in Maine, calculating every word like a chess move. With what money? I asked. Last I checked, your credit cards were maxed out on those client lunches you've been having. She finally looked up, and there was that smile again. Oh, don't worry about money, David. I'm sure we'll figure something out. The way she said we made it clear she meant you, like I was some kind of ATM machine that existed solely to fund her midlife crisis. I'd put her through law school, working double shifts at the insurance company while she studied for the bar exam. I'd built this house with my own hands, every cabinet and floorboard a testament to the future I thought we were building together. Now she wanted to tear it all down for some modern nonsense that would look good in her Instagram posts. You know what, Monica? You're right. We should definitely redecorate. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling. I'm thinking we start with the bedroom. Maybe get rid of that king-size bed. Replace it with 2 singles. You know, for when you want to have adult conversations with your friends. Her coffee mug hit the counter with a sharp click. Don't be crude, David. Crude? I'm being practical. Hell, maybe we should just convert the whole house into a bed and breakfast. Monica's place has a nice ring to it, don't you think? Lily wandered into the kitchen, still in her pajamas, and grabbed a granola bar from the pantry. She looked between us with the weary expression of a kid who'd grown up watching her parents' marriage slowly implode. Are you guys getting divorced? She asked, like she was asking about the weather. Of course not, sweetheart, Monica said, switching to her mother voice, all warmth and reassurance, like she wasn't busy burning our family to the ground. Daddy's just being dramatic. Dramatic, I laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. Yeah, that's me, Mr. Drama Queen. Heaven forbid I get upset about my wife wanting to turn our marriage into some kind of polyamorous experiment. What's polyamorous? Lily asked. Ask your mother, I said. She's the expert. Monica's face flushed red. David, that's enough. But I was just getting started. 20 years of swallowing my pride, of pretending I didn't notice the late nights and the mysterious phone calls and the way she looked at me like I was something she'd stepped in. 20 years of being the good husband, the provider, the stable one, while she chased whatever fantasy was going to make her feel young and exciting again. You know what's enough? I said. Enough is me busting my buttocks for 2 decades while you play lawyer princess. Enough is me pretending not to notice when you come home smelling like another man's cologne. Enough is me sitting at this table every night, eating dinner with a woman who looks at me like I'm some kind of consolation prize. The kitchen went dead silent. Even Lily had stopped chewing her granola bar. Monica stood up slowly, her silk robe falling around her like armor. I think, she said, her voice perfectly controlled, that you need to take a step back and think about what you're saying. Think about what you might lose. It was a threat, dressed up in lawyer speak, but a threat all the same. She was reminding me that she made more money, that she had connections, that in a divorce she could probably take me for everything I had and leave me with nothing but child support payments and weekend visitation. But here's the thing about threats. They only work if the other person has something left to lose. You're absolutely right, I said. I should definitely think about what I might lose. Like my self-respect, my dignity, my ability to look at myself in the mirror without wanting to punch my own face. I grabbed my keys from the counter and headed for the door. Where are you going? Monica called after me. To the gym, I said. Going to hit something that can't lawyer its way out of getting hit back. Mick's boxing gym hadn't changed in 20 years. Same cracked leather heavy bags, same smell of sweat and determination, same motivational posters peeling off the walls. The only difference was Mick himself, a little grayer, a little slower, but still tough as a $2 steak. He looked up from wrapping some kids' hands when I walked in, and his weathered face split into a grin. Well, I'll be damned, David Chen. Thought you'd forgotten about us little people now that you're all suburban and domesticated? It's David Walsh, Mick. Has been for 20 years. I'd taken Monica's name when we got married. Seemed romantic at the time. Now it just felt like another piece of myself I'd given away for nothing. Right, Walsh. So what brings you back to the land of the living? Wife finally drive you to drink? Something like that. I pulled on some old gloves that still hung in my locker, muscle memory guiding my hands through the familiar ritual. Need to hit something. Well, you came to the right place. Mick gestured toward the heavy bags. Just remember what I taught you. Don't swing wild. Aim for the head, not the heart. Heart shots feel good, but head shots end fights. I spent the next hour beating the hell out of a heavy bag, working out 20 years of frustration and disappointment. My hands remembered the combinations, even if my shoulders reminded me I wasn't 25 anymore. Jab, cross, hook, jab, jab, cross. Each punch was Monica's laugh when Trent showed up at our door. Each combination was her saying I was pathetic, that I was a small-town loser. By the time I was done, my shirt was soaked with sweat and my knuckles were raw, but my head was clearer than it had been in months. Feel better? Mick asked, tossing me a towel. Getting there. I wiped the sweat from my face and sat down on the bench. You ever been married, Mick? 3 times. Struck out every time. He sat down beside me, his old bones creaking. Want some advice from a guy who's been there? Shoot. Don't get caught swinging wild. I know you're mad. Hell, I can see it in every punch you just threw. But anger makes you stupid, makes you telegraph your moves. You want to win this fight, you got to be smart about it. What if I don't want to win? What if I just want to hurt her the way she's hurt me? Mick was quiet for a long moment, studying me with those sharp old eyes that had seen everything twice. You know what the difference is between a boxer and a brawler? He finally asked. What? A brawler swings for the fences every time, hoping to get lucky. A boxer studies his opponent, learns their weaknesses, waits for the right moment to strike. He stood up, his knees popping. Your wife sounds like she thinks she's already won this fight. That's her weakness right there. I thought about that on the drive home. Monica did think she'd won. She'd been so confident, so smug about her little fantasy dinner, like I was just going to roll over and accept whatever scraps of dignity she decided to throw my way. She was about to learn that even a beaten dog will bite if you corner it long enough. When I got home, Monica's car was gone, probably off having another client lunch that would run until well past dinner. I went upstairs to our bedroom and started looking around with new eyes. Not as a husband, but as an investigator. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. Hidden in the back of her jewelry box, underneath the pearls I'd bought her for our 10th anniversary, was a hotel room key card. The Marriott downtown, the expensive one with the penthouse suites and the champagne room service. I held the key card up to the light, and for the first time in months, I smiled. Game on, Monica. The law firm's annual charity gala was Monica's favorite event of the year. A chance to dress up, network with the city's elite, and show off how successful and sophisticated she'd become. She'd been planning her outfit for weeks, talking about it constantly like it was the Met Gala instead of a bunch of lawyers getting drunk on overpriced wine. She came downstairs that night looking like $1,000,000 in a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Her hair was perfect, her makeup flawless, her smile bright enough to power half of Portland. "How do I look?" she asked, doing a little spin in the hallway. "Like a woman who's about to have the night of her life," I said, adjusting my tie. I'd gone all out too, my best suit, the one I'd bought for Lily's school awards ceremony. If I was going to watch my marriage burn down, I might as well look good doing it. The gala was being held at the Portland Harbor Hotel, all crystal chandeliers and marble floors and the kind of old money elegance that made people like me feel like we were wearing a costume. Monica worked the room like a politician, air-kissing colleagues and laughing at jokes that weren't funny, her hand resting possessively on my arm whenever someone important came by. The perfect wife. The perfect act. I spotted Trent across the room, holding court with a group of junior associates who hung on his every word like he was delivering the Sermon on the Mount. He looked good, I had to admit. Confident, successful. Everything I wasn't. "There's Trent," Monica said, following my gaze. "I should go say hello." "By all means," I said. "Don't let me stop you." She squeezed my arm. "Don't be like that, David. This is important for my career." "Your career, right?" I watched her glide across the room toward him, her hips swaying in that dress. "Wouldn't want to interfere with your career?" What happened next was like watching a car accident in slow motion. Monica approached Trent's little circle, and he immediately turned toward her with that same smug smile he'd worn on my front porch. She touched his arm, leaned in close to whisper something in his ear, and he threw back his head and laughed. Right there, in front of half the legal community in Portland, my wife was flirting with another man. Not subtly, not carefully, but openly, and obviously, like I didn't exist at all. The worst part? I could see other people noticing. The sideways glances, the whispered conversations behind raised champagne glasses. My humiliation was becoming public entertainment. That's when I spotted the waiter walking by with a tray full of red wine. "Excuse me," I said, stepping directly into his path. The collision was perfect. The tray went flying, sending a dozen glasses of Cabernet Sauvignon cascading through the air in a beautiful arc that ended with Trent wearing about half a bottle of wine on his expensive suit. "Oh my God," I said, loud enough for half the room to hear. "I'm so sorry. How clumsy of me." Trent stood there dripping, his perfect hair plastered to his forehead, red wine staining his white shirt like blood. The junior associates scattered like cockroaches when the lights come on. "You did that on purpose," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Did what on purpose?" I grabbed some napkins from a nearby table and started dabbing at his shirt, making the stain worse. "It was an accident. These things happen when you're not paying attention to where you're going." Monica appeared at his side, her face flushed with embarrassment and anger. "David, what have you done?" "Just trying to help clean up the mess," I said. Then I raised my voice, addressing the crowd that had gathered to watch the show. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for just a moment." "David, don't," Monica started, but I was already in motion. I grabbed a champagne glass from a passing waiter and tapped it with a butter knife until the room fell silent. "I'd like to propose a toast," I announced, my voice carrying clearly across the marble floors and crystal chandeliers. "To my beautiful wife Monica and to her close friend Trent. May their professional relationship continue to be as satisfying as it has been lately." The silence that followed was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop in that room full of lawyers and judges and city officials. Monica's face went white, then red, then white again. "And to Trent specifically," I continued, raising my glass higher, "may your performance at work be better than your performance in other areas, because from what I hear, there's definitely room for improvement." That did it. Trent lunged at me, wine-stained and furious, but I was ready for him. 20 years older, maybe, but I still remembered how to slip a punch. He swung wild, just like Mick had warned against, and I stepped aside and let him stumble past me into a table full of appetizers. The room erupted in chaos. People were shouting, pulling out phones to record the drama, and somewhere in the distance I could hear Monica screaming my name. Mick appeared out of nowhere. Apparently, he'd been working security for the event, and grabbed me by the arm. "Time to go, champ," he said, pulling me toward the exit. "You made your point." As we walked out, I caught sight of Monica helping Trent to his feet, her perfect dress now stained with wine and shrimp cocktail. She looked up at me across the room, and for just a moment, I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Fear. Good. It was about time she realized she wasn't the only one who could play games. The video went viral by morning. Not worldwide viral, but Portland, Maine legal community viral, which was bad enough. Someone had filmed the whole thing. My toast, Trent's swing, his graceful dive into the appetizer table. By the time I got to work, it had been shared on Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok, with captions like, "Lawyer Fight Night," and "When keeping it real goes wrong." My boss called me into his office before I'd even had my coffee. "David," Jim Morrison said, and yes, that was his real name, and no, he couldn't sing. "We need to talk." Jim was a good guy, mid-50s, been running Morrison Insurance for 20 years. He'd hired me straight out of college and never once made me feel like I was just another employee. But right now, he looked like a man who'd rather be anywhere else. "I saw the video," he said. "Yeah, I figured you might have. You want to tell me what that was about?" I sat down in the chair across from his desk and tried to figure out how to explain that my wife had been systematically destroying our marriage for months, and last night I'd finally snapped. "Monica's having an affair," I said finally. "With that guy. Trent," Jim nodded slowly. "And you thought the best way to handle that was to attack him at a charity gala?" "I didn't attack anybody. I spilled some wine and made a toast. If he couldn't handle a little public speaking, that's on him." "David." Jim leaned forward, his expression serious. "I've known you for 15 years. You're one of the most level-headed guys I've ever worked with. But this," he gestured at his computer screen, where the video was probably still playing, "this isn't you." He was right. The old David Walsh would have swallowed his pride, gone to marriage counseling, maybe cried a little in the shower where nobody could see. The old David would have done everything possible to save his marriage, even if it ended him. But the old David was gone. He died somewhere between Monica's fantasy dinner and her telling me I was pathetic. "Maybe it is me," I said. "Maybe I've just been pretending to be someone else for so long I forgot who I really was." Jim was quiet for a long moment, studying me the way Mick had at the gym. "You know I can't have my employees getting into public fights," he said finally. "I know, but I also know what it's like to watch your marriage fall apart." He opened his desk drawer and pulled out a flask, pouring a shot into his coffee mug. "My first wife cheated on me with my brother. Took me 2 years to find out, and by then she'd cleaned out our bank account and moved to Florida." "What did you do?" "Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Sat there and took it like a good little sufferer." He took a sip from his mug and made a face. "Worst mistake of my life. You know what I should have done?" "What?" "Exactly what you did last night. Made sure everyone knew what kind of person she really was." He put the flask away and looked at me seriously. "Take the day off, David. Let this blow over. But don't you dare apologize for standing up for yourself." I left the office feeling better than I had in months. Maybe I'd made a fool of myself at the gala, but at least I'd done it on my own terms. For once in my life, I'd stopped being the sufferer and started fighting back. My phone buzzed with a text from my neighbor Barb. "Saw the video? You okay?" I texted back, "Never better. Coffee later?" "You bet. I'll make the good stuff." Barb Henderson was 73 years old, barely 5 feet tall, and tougher than most men half her age. She'd lived next door for 8 years, and in all that time, she'd never once pretended to like Monica. I'd always thought it was just personality conflict. Now I was starting to think Barb had seen something I'd missed. I found her in her kitchen, grinding coffee beans and humming along to an old Patsy Cline song on the radio. "Well, well," she said without turning around, "if it isn't Portland's newest celebrity. You saw it too, huh?" "Honey, everyone saw it. My granddaughter sent it to me at 6 this morning with about 15 crying, laughing emojis." She turned around, her sharp blue eyes studying my face. "Question is, how are you holding up?" "Honestly, I feel like I've been holding my breath for 20 years, and I finally remembered how to exhale." She poured 2 cups of coffee and gestured for me to sit at her kitchen table. The window looked out over both our backyards, and I could see Monica's car in our driveway. She was home, probably fielding phone calls from her colleagues and trying to figure out how to spin last night's disaster. "You know," Barb said, settling into her chair, "I never liked that woman. I kind of figured that out. Want to know why?" I took a sip of coffee. It was good, strong enough to wake the dead, and nodded. Because she never looked at you like she loved you, not once in all the years I've been watching. She looked at you like you were useful, like you were a tool she kept in her shed for when she needed something fixed. The words hit harder than Trent's punch would have, because they were true. I'd known it for years, but I'd never admitted it to myself. Monica had never loved me. She'd loved what I represented: stability, security, someone to pay the bills while she built her career. So, what do I do now? I asked. Barb smiled, and there was something almost predatory in it. Now, honey, you make sure she understands exactly what she's lost. Monica was waiting for me when I got home, sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of papers spread out in front of her. She'd changed out of her work clothes into jeans and a sweater, but she still looked like she was preparing for battle. "We need to talk," she said without looking up. "I figured we might." "Sit down." I remained standing. After 20 years of jumping, when she said jump, I was done taking orders. She finally looked up, and I could see the calculation in her eyes. She was in lawyer mode now, preparing her arguments, looking for weaknesses to exploit. "What you did last night was unacceptable," she began. "You embarrassed me in front of my colleagues. You damaged my professional reputation. I told the truth," I interrupted, "in public, about what you've been doing behind my back for months." "What I've been doing?" Her voice rose an octave. "David, I haven't done anything wrong. Trent and I are friends. Colleagues. Just because your small-town mind can't understand that men and women can have professional relationships." "Cut the mess, Monica." The words came out harder than I'd intended, and she actually flinched. Good. It was about time she realized I wasn't going to sit there and let her gaslight me anymore. "I found the hotel keycard," I continued. "The one hidden in your jewelry box. The Marriott downtown, room 1247. Should I call them and ask how many times you've used it in the past 6 months?" Her face went white, but she recovered quickly. 20 years of courtroom experience had taught her how to think on her feet. "You went through my personal belongings?" "It's my house too, Monica. My jewelry box too, considering I paid for everything in it." "That's not the point. The point is that you've been lying to me for months, maybe years. The point is that you brought your boyfriend to our house, to our dinner table, and tried to make me participate in whatever sick game you've been playing. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen. The point is that your little performance last night has been viewed over 10,000 times, and the comments are illuminating." She reached for the phone, but I pulled it back. "Wow, what an idiot," I read aloud. "Poor guy, she's been cheating on him for sure. Team David all the way. Oh, and this one's my favorite. Monica Walsh is a cold-hearted snake who got exactly what she deserved." "Stop." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why? Isn't this what you wanted? Public attention? Everyone knowing how exciting and sophisticated your life has become?" She was crying now, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of rage, of frustration, of a woman who'd suddenly realized that her carefully constructed world was crumbling around her. "You've ruined everything," she said. "My career, my reputation, Your marriage?" I laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. "Honey, you ruined that all by yourself. I just made sure everyone else knew about it." I headed for the stairs, but her voice stopped me. "If you think you can divorce me and walk away with anything, you're wrong," she said. And there was the Monica I'd come to know. Cold, calculating, vicious when cornered. "I make 3 times what you do. I have connections you can't even imagine. I will destroy you in court." I turned around slowly, and something in my expression made her shrink back in her chair. "You know what your problem is, Monica? You think this is about money. About the house, the cars, the bank accounts." I smiled, and I could see my reflection in the kitchen window behind her. I looked like a stranger. "But it's not about any of that. Then what is it about?" "It's about making sure everyone knows exactly who you really are. And honey, after last night, I'd say we're off to a pretty good start." I went upstairs and started packing a bag. I was done sleeping in the same house as her, done pretending we were still married in any way that mattered. But I wasn't done with Monica Walsh, not by a long shot. The real fun was just beginning.